بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum everybody, welcome to those who are joining us now, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook as well as on Insta Ahlul Bayt. I'm just going to wait a few minutes while people slowly join us, inshallah.
We need to add some like elevator music just to make it
kidding.
Awkward.
Yeah. Let's do some small talk. How are you doing, Sheikhna?
I'm doing well. It was a good day. I lose track of the days. You know, sometimes I forget that it's Jumu'ah. Sometimes I forget that it's like Monday or Wednesday. So it's all like mushed together. So I just call it day now. It's
Day?
either day or night.
That's true. I mean, they've blended into each other quite easily. So it's become kind of challenging to monitor that these days. So I think we've got a good crowd of people coming on Instagram, just making sure on it doesn't sound like I've got things handled here. Just checking on Facebook, just make sure that everything's going well, inshallah, and then we can begin our session this evening. We love technology, but sometimes it can be quite challenging to get everything rolling as needed. But alhamdulillah wa shukr, we have a wonderful brother who's helping us with the technology of this all. So just want to make sure people on Instagram, can you hear everything clearly? Just give us a thumbs up. Just seeing thumbs up there, it's all good. Okay, thumbs up. Looks like we're good there, inshallah. Khair, inshallah. Thank you, Sheikhna, for your patience as well. So again, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you for coming and joining us this evening. And thank you, Sheikhna, for joining us. We've had a series now of different talks with different experts, different backgrounds. And alhamdulillah, it's been really, I'd say, beneficial these days, since we haven't had our regular face-to-face events, and whether it's our work, whether it's a higher education, whether it's in our centers. So it's amazing, subhanAllah, how quickly we shifted over to the virtual world. And alhamdulillah, we figured out different ways of streaming like we have now in different mediums to be able to reach people. And I can see we have people from all over the world joining us this evening. I think this was much anticipated. A lot of people are excited to perhaps learn more ways, not that I'm professing, at least from my end, not that I'm the expert to know how to or assume the answers, but inshallah, this will be a lighthearted conversation on how to maintain positivity during this time, which has been taxing and challenging for a lot of us in different ways, and very serious too, as we've all been grounded, so to speak, into our homes. And we've quickly had to shift. What are we now? Week 4, heading into week 5, into the lockdown, quarantine, however you want to call it, depending on where you are in the world, and how to manage this. So we've been able to shift gears, so to speak. We've had to go through several phases of, first of all, shock, uncertainty. What is this all about? And then all of a sudden now we're negotiating it with our new environment to a new normalcy, so to speak. So inshallah, tonight, we're going to take a look at the questions that people have been sending us all week, including last minute questions, which I jotted down. And inshallah, the Sheikh and I will take turns answering, but also just discussing with our live audience as well. If you can, people who are on Instagram and on Facebook, as well as YouTube, you can just jot down where you are. That would be great to know where you are in the world. I myself am from Ottawa, Canada, and just a quick intro. So I'm a psychotherapist, and I treat clients, mostly university students, that deal with mental health, life struggles in the university setting. And I do a lot of mental health advocacy outside the community. And without any need for introduction, we have the famous tweet Sheikh with us, Sheikh Azhar Nasser. So just a quick intro, Sheikh. Now, how are you, after saying, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure. It's an honor to participate in this this program. As you know, I'm based in Vancouver. Most of you know me through social media, particularly Twitter. So it's nice to kind of have some face-to-face interaction. And so I'm looking forward to learning from people's different, the different coping mechanisms, because I think we're all in the same boat. I don't think anyone has all the answers, so as much as I'm going to be giving some advice during this session, it's also going to be a learning opportunity for me. So I'm looking forward to that.
Likewise, I'm looking forward to that as well. So we have people who are saying that they're all the way from Toronto, Brisbane, Australia, Michigan, Ottawa. Hey, salam, Ottawa. Then we have Toronto, Singapore, Washington. So alhamdulillah, it's pretty much all over the place. So it's wonderful that we have people joining us. And so this is 10:30, around 10:30 here in Ottawa, where it's 7:30 in where you are.
Yeah.
So 2:30 a.m. GMT time. So we got people from all over the Netherlands, New York, Virginia, mashallah. Welcome Brazil, mashallah. Welcome everyone. So let's begin with our first question that we have here. So somebody sent in a very relevant question to what's happening in terms of how to cope with difficult circumstances in our living situations during this quarantine. I'm going to ask the Sheikh first this question.
Okay, so again, I'm not going to go into like a majlis mode or try to give a lecture. I'll try to keep this as lighthearted and brief as I can. One thing that helps me personally, because we all go through challenges, we all go through difficulties. I think that we tend to fall into a negative pattern of thinking. We start to self-loathe because we don't really we haven't understood the we're not willing sometimes to understand and accept the reality of this life. And the reality of life is that life is inevitably going to have challenges. It's going to have difficulties. You're going to face obstacles. Life is not perfect, nor will it ever be perfect. And this is something that Allah has promised us. Allah never promises us in the Quran that life is going to be a breeze, it's going to be easy. In fact, he promises the exact opposite, right? وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ, right? Allah says that I will surely try you with fear, with loss of life, with loss of wealth. So one important reality to accept is that we are gonna experience suffering. So a lot of times we fall into depression because we have an unrealistic expectation of what life is supposed to be. So I think when you come to terms with the fact that life is going to have challenges, it's going to have difficulties, it's inescapable. I mean, no matter how much money you have, even if you marry the person of your dreams, you live in, your dream city, no matter what, you're going to face challenges, you're going to face difficulties. So that's number one, having a realistic expectation of dunya. Number two, we have to always see the silver lining, right? So for many of us, this quarantine is more of an inconvenience than a full-fledged calamity, especially for those of us who are able to work from home, who have been able to retain our jobs, we're healthy, we're around family. So to call that a musibah, I think is an exaggeration. For many of us, it's an inconvenience. I can't go to the mall, I can't go to a restaurant, I can't go to the park. That's an inconvenience. Now, there are some people who are actually experiencing a hardship. It's an actual calamity for them. They're sick, they've lost loved ones, they've lost their jobs. That is a hardship. But for those of us who still have our jobs and who are healthy, it's really an inconvenience. So we have to put that in perspective. And as I said, we have to be able to see the silver lining, right? For months, for years, many of us have been very disconnected from members of our family. And now we're forced to kind of deepen those relationships through face-to-face interaction. So what I remind myself whenever I face challenges, I go back to that verse 155 of Surah Al-Baqarah. When I feel like, why is this happening to me? The real question is, why shouldn't it be happening to you? Allah promised that you're going to go through these challenges, you're going to go through these difficulties, and also trying to see the good in the situation that you find yourself in. And if you look at the history of prophets, a lot of good things have happened to people in solitude. You know what I mean? Like when you think about the prophet, God had, like, when did Jibreel bring revelation to the prophet? When he was in a crowded room, or when he was in solitude on that mountaintop?
In deep meditation, mindfulness, and reflection.
So it's forced us to unplug, and I think that that's healthy. You know, some of us, you know, unfortunately, it's taken a pandemic for people to unplug, but I think it's healthy for us to kind of reorient ourselves and to really reassess the direction of our lives.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. And from a psychological perspective, I guess, or from a mental well-being perspective, it is about accepting challenges that come your way. And again, the why me, we always talk about that in sessions when clients come in with difficult situations, whether it's local issues or sometimes international students who've had to deal with political trauma back home or natural disasters. How do they cope and deal with these things, right? And a lot of them do come in with the question, why me? And then we try to reframe and redirect that to, okay, so instead of saying, why me? What can I get out of this? What can I learn from this? What can I benefit? How can I cope and deal with this? Because life is not like this. It's not this, linear way to get to your goals. It's always up and down, lots of dips and, hurdles to go through. And so the next time you're down, you're much higher up than when you first started because of the challenges that you've gone through. You've learned how to deal with heartbreaks, right? You've toughened up after a few heartbreaks. You've learned how to deal with that. You've learned how to deal with, let's say, failures or not passing exams or courses or relationships and friendships, etc. The list goes on with all the challenges, right? So you build up resilience, you learn coping strategies, you learn how to set boundaries, you learn how to expand your boundaries as well in terms of how to deal with people. And so during this time, again, instead of say, why me, well, what can we get out of this for ourselves? And I know with the clients that I've been working with, it's become very challenging for them who don't know what's going to happen with their studies. Let's push their co-op placements, their internships, their graduation dates. They're not going to have a graduation this coming spring in our university. And of course, that's going to be sad. But at the same time, we can reframe them and say, you know what? I'm graduating. That's the key thing here. I'm going to get that degree. I'm graduating. Alhamdulillah. We can do the graduation ceremony in the fall, or we can do it at home. There's been a lot of memes and jokes about that. Graduating at home with your Arab families, hitting pots and pans and halhulas, things like that. So
weddings, can you imagine
weddings? I have heard of a wedding in Baghdad. My cousin told me about today. What they have done is they told their neighborhood that there's a wedding, but in our cultures, they do like village, neighborhood, everybody comes to the wedding, da'wa amma. Open invitation. So what they said is everybody dress up, okay? And we're going to do what they've done in Italy, which is to celebrate on the balconies. So Iraqi style with their abayas, they're celebrating and doing the zaffa out on the balconies. And, it's amazing to see how people become creative in terms of whether it's graduations, whether it's birthdays. Everyone's doing Zoom birthdays now. All these types of things to lift each other's spirits, but also stay connected. So it is about how to deal with these difficult circumstances by reframing, by being creative, by finding the good in these challenges. And yes, like you said, Sheikhna, there are some very dire and difficult situations where people have lost their jobs, they've lost loved ones, they're on the brink of losing these things. And we are in a state of inconvenience, most of us.
Yeah.
And we also have to acknowledge that there are people out there who are dealing with so much more challenges than ours, right? So it becomes about how you choose to respond to this difficult situation, and which leads us to.
And one thing that I'd add, not to interrupt.
Please go ahead.
Even for those who are actually experiencing a real hardship, whether it's losing a job, whether you have a family member who's sick, we should always go back to that Quranic principle, and that is لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها.
No.
Allah doesn't put a burden on you that you cannot bear. So whatever you are going through in your life, know that that particular trial is something that has been catered to you, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is essentially telling you that I have given you the resilience to overcome that challenge. Now, so you might feel that the world is kind of closing in and your life is crumbling, but the fact that you're going through that hardship is a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has found you fit. He has found you capable of overcoming that challenge. So sometimes we underestimate how strong we are, how resilient we are. And Allah puts us through these difficulties to show us that, you're a lot stronger, you're a lot more resilient than you think. And with my support and by staying connected to me, these hardships will develop qualities within you that you would have never acquired if you didn't go through this trial. Speaking about, just being restricted to your household, to your house. I mean, think about how that helps us relate to, people in Palestine, for example, at least to a certain degree, that, they're under occupation. They're not as mobile as they'd like to be. Of course, their circumstances are much more dire, but the point is that you develop a little bit more empathy with those who don't have that freedom to kind of move about.
And this kind of reminds me to an article I was reading about earlier. So Dacher Keltner, sorry, I didn't pronounce that right. He's the founder of the Greater Good Science Center and a professor of psychology at the University of California. And he talks about how positive emotions and pro-social emotions are more contagious than any others. So they spread much more rapidly and collectively than the negative. So this goes in line to what you were saying. And so this is modern research that our own faith has taught us, subhanAllah, 1400 years ago, that shows us that if we can put that positivity out there, show kindness, show compassion, that can spread. That can really impact people in a positive way as well, if they can do that. So just knowing that perhaps can propagate more of that goodness out there within each other. So this leads us to the next question, which asks, what is the best method to develop positive thoughts and a mind frame? You want to go for it from a spiritual perspective? No, I'll add after.
You'll do it after. Okay, so the way that I look at it is, I mean, forgive me for always making the Quranic references. I'm not trying to be like, too Sheikh on you guys, but
that's what we're looking for, Sheikhna. Go for it.
There's a verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Dawood and the family of Dawood, "I'malu ala Dawood shukra." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the household of David. And, of course, Dawood alayhi salam was a king. He was a prophet. If anyone enjoyed, dunya, it's him. I mean, he had all of the prosperity and the riches at his disposal. Notice that Allah doesn't tell Dawood, say that you are grateful. Rather, he says, "I'malu ala Dawood shukra," which is the idea that gratitude is not just lip service. Right. Gratitude is a practice, and it's beautiful the verb that's used. "I'malu ala Dawood shukra." Practice gratitude. If you're a person that's negative, that's not just going to go away with, it's not like a switch that's going to go away. It takes practice to be grateful. Sometimes when you face hardship, your mind gets clouded and you tend to focus only on the hardship. When you're facing calamities, when you're facing any type of misfortune, you have to put in work to shift from a negative mindset to a positive mindset. And sometimes you have to really sit and expend some mental energy and really start thinking about all of the good things that are happening in your life. And that takes time, right? Sometimes you have to sit and you have to think, okay, so I have all of these problems. I lost my job. I'm sick. I have a flu. And sometimes, if that's the only thing that you're focusing on, yeah, you're going to feel miserable. But you have to shift your mind away from what's wrong to what is right. So think about the fact that, okay, my lungs feel fine. I can take a deep breath. My family, my parents, are still alive. I can pick up the phone and talk to my mother and my father. So really making an effort to at least mentally list all of the blessings in your life. Now, we tend to say, yeah, Allah has blessed us so much, but really make a list. When you actually write it down or you count them in your mind, just recalling the blessings has an impact, and it has an impact on your mood. It has an impact on, it reduces your anxiety. Just thinking about all of the good things that are happening in your life. So this is this idea of practicing gratitude, and it's a Quranic principle. It's something that Allah has instructed Dawood, and so Dawood, he has all of this wealth, but even someone who's living in a palace can be ungrateful if they don't practice gratitude, meaning if they don't actually think and reflect on all of the little things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that we take for granted. I mean, just the fact that we can blink. I mean, how many of us really think about the ni'mah of blinking? And the reason why I say that is because there was a Greek businessman. He was a multi-billionaire. I was reading about him a while back. And so he's a billionaire. On paper, the guy has achieved everything that you could possibly want to achieve, at least from a materialistic perspective. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took one blessing away from him. And that was that he couldn't blink. The muscle that was responsible for blinking it just didn't function. So he constantly had to apply eye drops to keep his eyes from drying out. So just one small little blessings that you and I probably haven't even thought about is something that if we think about all these little things, it will make our problems seem very very minute.
Absolutely agree with that. And somebody just joined us actually here, and he's very therapeutic. His name is Loz, and he always tends to wander over, joins. Otherwise, I go in the middle of the live and go grab him, because people actually know him now and request Mr. Loz to come join. Oh, look at that. He's enjoying it. So somebody asked the question while you were speaking, Sheikhna, would this method also work with depressed and anxious people? And I would say yes, because this is part of the treatment that we would also use within therapy to help people who are dealing with those mental health challenges. And to reiterate what you were saying is oh, all right, he decided to go and leave his hair all over me, so I cannot pray in these clothes after this. So we use these strategies also in therapy and emphasize practicing gratitude. And this can be done, like you said, writing it daily, being grateful for what it is that you do have. And it could be the smallest of things. So one of the things I'm grateful for during the lockdown is make sure I have this at all times at home. And this is my Earl Grey decaf. Can't do caffeine, decaf, because caffeine makes you shake, get your heart rate going, and it can cause more anxiety. So this stuff is amazing. And I do it London fog style. Make sure I got my organic honey, organic 3% milk, along with the stuff's amazing. Put it together, you know what? Alhamdulillah, the small cup of tea with a mug that I got from Karbala.
I was going to say that is the most Shia cup I've ever seen in my life.
That's the most Shia cup. Absolutely. We got Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and then we've got Abbas here with water. Absolute blessing. See, these are small things that have a lot of weight in them in terms of being grateful for small things, right? Because each time I look at these, I remember where I got them, right across from Bab al-Qibla in Karbala, in a ziyarah that I recently went to. So attaching that memory to something that's positive, yes, can reinforce, right? And so this comes down to the science of things, of how we can think about negative things and positive things, and how the positive things can strengthen the neural pathways in our minds, right? And so a very simple example I learned from a friend is the impact of a positive or negative thought on our bodies. And so this proves, again, how it can impact people, whether they're depressed, anxious, or just overall stress. Very simple. So you can try this at home, ladies and gents. If you have somebody next to you, just throw them on the floor.
Can I just interject for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a sister that just mentioned that I have a sparkle on my eyelid. So I think I need to explain that before people.
I think it's your daughter's fault. Did she try to put makeup on you instead of stab you this time?
Before I let people's imaginations run wild. Yeah, so basically during the day while my wife is, working and, doing her conference calls and everything, I am basically the humble slave of my 2-year-old. And that means that I have to paint with her, and we were playing with glitter today. So I have like glitter all over my body, but alhamdulillah, it did not touch my turban. And that's the most important thing, because If it touches the imama, then that's a crisis because I don't actually know how to wrap a turban. I have to. So anyone who goes to Najaf, I humbly request them to bring me back a fresh
wrapped turban.
turban. Yeah, these are the Maulana problems that no one knows about.
So let's talk about that for a second, since we're being light and light. So you don't know how to tie your turban? We know how to tie our hijabs. You're telling me you don't know how to tie your own turban?
You know, you guys have tutorials. You we don't have tutorials. You know, we have like a couple of.
You should do that. You should tweet a wrapping your turban tutorial.
I need to just put it out and just have people bid because I'm willing to pay money because that's how dire it is. And by the way, this is, you know, people, you know, again, I'm giving you guys a good education on turbans.
Please do.
Even though you see this little turban or this mid-sized turban on my head, that's actually it's about 30 feet or 10 meters of cloth.
Uh-huh.
So you typically have to wrap it around your knee. It's an art. I mean, I tried to wrap it a few weeks ago and it just looked like a towel, like literally a jumbled up towel on my head. So it's an art. And yeah, so that's.
I think we might have started something.
These are the things that keep me awake at night. You know,
really
worrying about like coronavirus. This is my like, you know, this is my
turban. How to wrap your turban. You know, sometimes we need to distract ourselves with less heavy things to be able to get to bed without nightmares, right? And usually the last type of thoughts that you have in your mind before you go to bed, and a lot of people are worrying, excuse me, and are just so stressful. Think about how Sheikh Azhar wraps his turban. I think that might alleviate some of that stress, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. So my struggle is a source of therapy for you. So someone is asking, is it heavy? It's actually, I like to think that I have a strong neck, but no, it's not heavy. It's not. It's sometimes, you know, you don't even feel it on your head.
Okay, I'm going to check to see if we have any turban type questions here. People are asking, what is the topic? We are discussing the Sheikh's turban right now because apparently it's an art, and alhamdulillah, there's no glitter on that today.
It is an art, and I would have to say, and I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but if we were to do a vote of who has the nicest, the most nicely wrapped turban, I will unabashedly say that I have the nicest turbans.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that should be something that
honestly go on YouTube tonight and just type in the names of other scholars, and you'll really look at their turbans, and you will very quickly realize that I put a little bit more effort, or I pay someone.
You pay somebody
I pay someone to put a little bit more effort. Yeah. Okay.
I think this is fascinating to learn about how the sheikhs actually compete with each other to have the best turban. So I think there should be a vote that, you know, after we're done, we'll put a question. We'll put a vote. I'll put a poll out through Insta Ahlul Bayt. Which Sayyid or Sheikh has the best amama? What's the prize if you win, Sheikhna?
What's the prize? So, do I get the prize or do I have to give a prize?
You have to give a prize if you win. Sorry.
So what was that tea that you held up? I'll just buy someone like a case of that tea.
The the decaf Earl Grey. There we go. To help you calm your nerves. Absolutely. So somebody was asking a question, what do you think of gratitude journals? How practical are they? I think we can both attest to that we do believe that it does have an impact from a spiritual perspective, perhaps writing things down, just being aware of gratitude of the things that you do have in your life. But
you don't even need to write them down. I mean, no. A lot of people are lazy. I mean, I consider myself a pretty lazy person. So just do it on your note. When it comes to certain things, yeah, definitely. My wife would even attest to that. So
bless her. She's the amazing multitasking queen that runs your schedule, mashallah.
Well, I would be living in a tent if it wasn't for her. She definitely keeps things in order. But even pulling up like the notepad, or even just mentally going through all of the things that you're grateful for, I think is definitely helpful.
Absolutely. Excuse me. And this can be something, especially you can do it during times of day where you want to lower your stress and your anxiety, and definitely before bed or when you wake up in the morning to set yourself up in that mood. I always tell students, especially students, but just people in general, try to organize yourself by getting your food ready the night before, your books, your outfits. Ladies, get your hijabs and accessories ready the night before, because you know in the morning when you've got kids and you got to run for the bus or get out of traffic, you're going to change your mind on things. So, or scrambling for things. And the idea is to prepare yourself, organize yourself. That can lower a lot of stress the next day. But that's not something we're really worrying about these days since we're at home, right? But it doesn't mean we leave our routines and our schedules.
So let me ask you a question. So imagine, you know, so some people live alone.
Right.
And they don't have the luxury of having siblings or spouses that they can fight with and drive crazy. So what do you advise those people? Like, how do you stay sane when, you know, say you live alone, you live in your own apartment, your own house, and it's just you can't really go anywhere. How do you maintain your sanity when you're flying solo?
I find a lot of people who live alone tend to, perhaps I'm generalizing, but enjoy living alone perhaps. Some people it's a choice that they live alone and they enjoy it, especially when they've had horror story roommate stories to share. Living alone has been definitely more preferable for them. And so they like that isolation from humanity that way, in terms of just having a calmer life, like stress-free in terms of dealing with people. Now, those people who are forced to be alone, that's a different story, of course. Perhaps they have learned and resiliency in terms of how to live alone. But those people who are not having, are not dealing with it very well right now, and I've seen lots of clients or spoken to, because we've gone virtual now in our counseling, where it has been very hard for them, especially because they're extroverted, right? And extroverted people derive their energy from being around other people, because subhanAllah, we're social beings. We pick up our energy usually from other people around us and the love and energy of others. So for those people, I would suggest and advise, and that's what we've been telling our clients who are living alone and feeling that, go virtual. Try to connect with things of interest to you, healthy things. And I'm not talking about Netflix all-nighter binges. Those, you know, maybe once in a while, I will raise up my arm and say, I have done that.
You're not talking about Tiger King?
No, I'm talking about silly Turkish shows here.
Honestly, have you seen Tiger King?
No, I haven't. What's that all about?
I know you've probably seen Tiger King.
No, well, I haven't.
You're all alone and, you know, there's no one to shame you. You've never seen Tiger King?
No, I don't even know what that's all about.
Don't watch it.
Tell me what that's about.
Someone recommended me to watch Tiger King. I think I watched the first episode, and it's the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life.
What's it about?
So let's connect this to being positive. If you feel depressed or you feel like your life is miserable, watch Tiger King, and your problems will just feel so trivial. And your life, I think you'll feel better about yourself if you watch Tiger King.
I don't know if I should. I'll tell you why. As a therapist,
it's the first few minutes.
Okay, and my friends and family will tell you this about me, that I cannot watch horror, extra drama things. I'll tell you why. It's because of the work that I do. When I'm listening to people's stories, whether it's heartbreak, whether it's death or stress or anxiety or trauma, all of these heavy things, right? When I listen to that all day long, you know what I do at the end of the day? I will watch teeny bopper things. I will watch kids shows. I will watch things that are light and fluffy, you know, just to get my mind off of the heavy stuff. So if you're telling me Tiger King is, you know, as vicious and savage as it sounds, I'm just gonna sit back and watch a light, fluffy movie and drink my chai. Thank you very much.
To each their own. To each their own.
But do people recommend watching this? Have you seen?
I don't. Let me make something very clear. I don't recommend that you watch it. I don't condone or endorse anything on that show. But yeah, I mean, if you want to really, you know, get a dose of how far in left field some people are, it gives you a new appreciation of just being normal.
I see. You know what? I'll check it out just to get an idea. It's always good to be aware and knowledgeable about what's happening.
I call it pop culture research. When people say, "Should you watch that?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's pop culture research. I'm researching for my future lectures."
Khair, inshallah. That's a good strategy. I kind of do that between my heavy sessions. I'll just go on social media and look at silly light stuff, and that kind of resets the button for me, which is probably a good strategy to use sometimes when we are dealing with heavy stuff. Try to find things that are a bit lighter, things that we enjoy. So I'm going to pick a question here that somebody's also sent us. how to have acceptance or rida for everything that happened. For instance, losing a job during this time. What are your thoughts on that one?
So it's very, I mean, we shouldn't downplay, you know, people's hardship. I think that it goes without saying that, especially if you're the breadwinner for a family, losing your job can be very traumatic. Now, there's a beautiful hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he says, and it's a hadith that I would encourage you guys to try to memorize or just be familiar with it, to go back to it whenever you feel that something awful has happened to you. And that it's a hadith where the Prophet says, "Ajaban li amri al-mu'min, inna amrahu kullahu khair." The Prophet says, you know, how amazing is the affair, is the condition of a mu'min. Everything that happens to a mu'min is good, right?
Yeah.
So وَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ لِأَحَدٍ إِلَّا الْمُؤْمِنِ, and that is not, and that doesn't apply to anyone except for a mu'min. إِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ سَرَّاء شَكَرٍ, if a believer is granted, if a blessing is bestowed upon him or her, they express gratitude, right? And being grateful develops their soul, right? وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّاء صَبَرٍ, and if they are afflicted with a calamity, they are patient, and that is good for them. So the key is that first you have to be a mu'min. If you are a mu'min, meaning that you're obeying Allah, you're doing the wajibat, you're avoiding the muharramat, you're making an effort to draw closer to Allah, then you're always in good hands, right? No matter what is happening to you, it's in your best interest. So even though it might hurt at the moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mapping out a path for you that will allow you to attain nearness to him. You know, going back to our discussion earlier, let's say, for example, someone, God forbid, you have some marital issues and you end up going through a very bitter divorce, right? And so obviously that's a very unpleasant experience. That's a traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a mu'min or if you're a mu'mina and you go through that, something good comes out of that bitter experience. And what is it? So you develop empathy. So chances are you're probably going to come in contact with someone else who's been through the trauma of divorce. And because you've tasted it, you know what it feels like, you can give them better advice because you know what it feels like to have your world completely, crumble before your eyes. So the point is that the Prophet says anything that happens to you, if you're a mu'min, is in your best interest. Asa an takrahu shay'an wa huwa khayrun lakum, right? Sometimes, the things that we despise, the things that we fear are actually in our best interest. We might not see it in the immediate future, but down the road, we will start to understand that all the situations that Allah put us in were designed, were customized for us to get closer to him.
And then there's different ways to get closer to him. So if you're somebody of faith, then you'd use the spiritual religious aspects. If you're a Muslim, then there's a prescription, so to speak, you could say, not necessarily a specific formula, but it's very individual in terms of what works for you to get to God, right? And so from a mental health, a psychological perspective, again, through the therapeutic process, it's so beautiful to see when people are in that dark, difficult place and slowly work through it. And again, it's very individual to get to that place where they relieved or they process or they work through whatever it is, whether it's the trauma of divorce or childhood trauma or just any sudden crisis that could have happened that have thrown them off guard. Yeah.
Sister, if you think about the life of the Prophet, when the Prophet, if you look at the circumstances under which the Prophet left Mecca, they were trying to kill him. He was essentially expelled from his home. Can you imagine how traumatic that is, that you're born in Mecca, your childhood is in Mecca, you get married in Mecca. He met Khadija in Mecca. I mean, all of these fond memories from that city, it's a part of you. And then overnight, the Prophet has to leave that all behind. I mean, talk about a traumatic experience. At that moment, anyone who's looking at the Prophet's life would say, wow, that's horrible. That's such a bad thing that's happening to you. But look at all of the good things that happen as a result of the hijrah, right? So what happened after the hijrah? The Prophet establishes a community. He builds a community, and then, 8 years later, he comes back and he conquers Mecca. The point is that oftentimes hardships, difficulties, traumatic experiences are actually precursors to new growth. It's a precursor to another victory that's waiting for you. So the Prophet having to leave Mecca is heartbreaking. But if it wasn't for that, do you think he would have been able to build the nation that he built in Medina? So sometimes we have to kind of think about things through that lens. Right. That maybe losing this job is kind of like your hijrah, where you're moving away from something towards something that is better.
And that's such a positive outlook to look again at a difficult situation, always trying to find the positive just outcomes that could come out of it, right? If you choose to stick to the negative, then you know what, your thought patterns are going to constantly go in that direction. You weigh yourself down. I started earlier to talk about this challenge, and my cat came in, or I think we started talking about sparkles and turbans, which, by the way, people are still asking about.
People are asking me to do tutorials. I don't know how to make a turban, guys. How am I going to make a tutorial?
No, we're going to put out who has the best turban. I think that's the next challenge. But in light of this, in terms of how negative or positive thoughts impact you. So if you have somebody next to you, just throw them down on the floor and talk about something negative. Okay. Lift up their foot as you're making them think about something negative. Notice the foot is quite heavy when you lift it up. It's stiff and it's heavy. Now change it to a more positive thought, something delightful, joyful, maybe a food that you enjoy, somebody that you like, or pretending we're at the beach or ziyarah because we're all stuck at home, something that brings you delight. Now the next person next to you, lift up the foot. When you lift up the foot at this point, subhanAllah, you find that it's lighter to lift up. It's not as heavy and stiff. I've done this a few times in front of audiences and people, and what we've seen, it's actually happening. It's not a magic trick. This is your mind, subhanAllah, and the impact of positive and negative thoughts. That's just evidence right there. If you can't see it out there, you see it on yourself or somebody in front of you. So now imagine all the thoughts that go through your head. How many thoughts go through your head all day long? And the negative and the positive, how does that impact you physically, right? How does that impact your contact interactions with people around you? It's incredibly powerful, subhanAllah. So again, how to cultivate that positivity, even in difficult times, using the history that we know of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam to derive that inspiration. And just even the stories that we have these days from people, we see the bad have gotten worse, and we've seen the good have become even better, subhanAllah. Restaurants that have closed down because of businesses now are opened up to cook, to feed the people who cannot feed themselves these days. Such beautiful acts of charity and kindness and altruism that we're, altruism, did I say that right? Yeah, that we're seeing, that people are giving and sharing and caring and buying groceries for the elderly, the vulnerable, helping people who are quarantined because they have the virus, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on, and especially now heading into Ramadan. What kind of programs are we going to have, especially for the communities that used to come to the masjid, feed their families, or just be around each other? There's so much that we can do in terms of goodness during this time. And these are great coping strategies for us as well, is when you become involved, right? Just want to get back to that question where people were asking about, living alone and how to deal with that. Some people actually shared some really nice answers. So somebody mentioned, for those living alone, going for a walk, speaking to someone is a great way to connect and help with loneliness, and the benefits of movement. So whether it's exercise at home, whether it is going for a walk, maybe running up and down the stairs in your house or apartment building. And this kind of leads me to this exercise question. So exercise makes you feel happy. We know it gets rid of your stress. It releases stress hormones out of your body, endorphins into your body. So workouts, dancing, is it permissible to work out or dance at home during quarantine? I'm assuming with music. So the intent here is not for whatever music can influence you, but for exercise. What are the rulings or your thoughts or around that question? I mean, latham goes a long way to a certain degree when you work out with latham, but then it's not really uplifting, right? But it can, when you're like, yeah, bus, you can really get into it. But yeah, just your thoughts around that, please.
So the question is about dancing.
So the question is, because exercise, different forms of exercise, such as dancing, they release endorphins into your system, but it's not intended for dance, like at a club or anything like that,
Yeah,
but for
yeah.
exercise.
As long as the dancing is not in the presence of a non-mahram,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not listening to music that is considered forbidden, then it seems like it wouldn't be problematic. Now,
Okay.
Sayyid Sistani is a bit more strict about dancing, and he sees it problematic for even women to dance in front of other women. But there are so many other ways to stay in shape. Like, for example, buying a jump rope. If you're worried about cardio, buying a jump rope is a very effective form of exercise. And a lot of people are very frustrated that they can't go to the gym, but you'd be surprised how many different workouts you can come up with just using your body weight. Push-ups, sit-ups, squats, jumping jacks. If you live in a hilly area and you're observing social distancing, running up a hill is a great cardio workout. If you have a couple of jugs of milk, 2 gallons of milk,
Yeah.
hold one in each arm and do like lunges. You got to be creative. If you have a toddler, I bench press my daughter. She's not heavy, but at least it's something, right? So
It's all in the reps there, right? The reps, the strengthening the muscle.
yeah. So with her, it's definitely high reps. Definitely high reps.
Oh, bless her. Bless her. We'd love to see a video of you working out together. I think that can inspire a lot of families these days who are stuck at home with their kids. Working out literally with your kids. That's a great opportunity right there.
Yeah, using them as dumbbells.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, there's so many different things that you can actually work out your body without using equipment. And I've been finding a few these days, and it's been very effective. We got to keep our bodies moving somehow, and getting the release of those hormones and getting rid of the stress hormones. And of course, not heading to the fridge as much. I think a lot of us can attest perhaps the last 4 weeks of stress eating has taken its toll. So that's something to be mindful of. Although we enjoy certain foods during this time and could bring a certain amount of joy, just to be careful of your health overall, because part of the immunity building is to make sure that you're eating healthy as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I have another question here. What do you define as the moment where it lasts for months, or if it comes back, especially during this time? Or don't you see ease anywhere in sight after hardship? So
Not
that's an
sure I
interesting
understand the
one.
questions.
So I think this has to do with in terms of living in the moment. So for perhaps the way I'm interpreting this is that, what do you define as the moment where it lasts for months, or if it comes back, especially during this time, or you don't see the ease anywhere in sight after hardship? So I guess somebody who's stuck in hardship, who can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, perhaps.
Yeah. So, and this is a question that I get a lot. People say that, Sheikh, I can't, we talk about, eventually hardship will come, but I feel that I'm stuck in this perpetual state of darkness. Now, if you feel that, you're you're in a rut, you can't break out of that condition, I think it's probably time to speak to a therapist to do some counseling. I think that's an indication that you might be clinically depressed, because we all go through difficulties, but it's a sign that you might be clinically depressed if you don't see any end. If it's something that's lasting for months on end, and you feel this dark cloud hovering over your head, I think that it would be time to seek some professional help. But one thing that I'd like to add to that is that it's a misconception. Many people have this misconception that when I'm going through a hardship, I have to wait for the relief. I have to wait for the ease. But
It's with it. It's
but
with
you
it.
and I, yeah, exactly. You and I know, we know that Allah doesn't say that after the hardship there will be ease.
It's with the hardship.
With every hardship. So our lives are not even like a roller coaster. It's not like you have ups and then you have downs. At every moment, there is hardship, and there is ease. You know, even if you think about the best day of your life, I'm sure that there was some hardship on that day. So at every stage in your life, you know, it's like a railroad track. You have the parallels of hardships and ease, and you have to choose, you know, what you're going to focus more on, because what you focus on is amplified. And it goes back to training yourself through the practice of gratitude to focus more on the good, on
Mhm.
what's going right, as opposed to what's the wrong.
I'm going to link what we just talked about to two questions here that are related. How do you suggest we unplug and increase spirituality with a shift to everything online, the pressures that come with increased screen time? And to add to that, somebody mentioned, which is very relevant, there's so much online lectures and live sessions, it's overwhelming. And I would say, you know, choose perhaps the ones that are most relevant to you or that are of interest to you, and limit that. Yes, we're encouraging people to use the virtual supports, use the everything that is online, but to be mindful what you're going to interact with. That's what I would say to that. What are your thoughts, Sheikh, on that as well?
I think because we're all quarantined, it's inevitable that there's going to be more screen time, just because it's the only way for us to maintain our relationships with people. But I think that you have to designate a certain period of the day where you as a family decide, okay, there's no screen time, you know, after 7 p.m. It's just going to be family time. It allows us time to decompress. So I think that you have to decide as a family that, you know, when we're having lunch, no one's using their cell phones. We're not going to be eating in front of the television, whatever it may be. So
Yeah.
that 2-3 hours a day, you know, maybe a few hours before bed, just have some real face-to-face interactions with your family. So organize your schedule. You know, I know it's a cliche, but it's helpful to be organized, to organize your time and make a decision that during certain times of the day, I'm not going to be on my phone. I'm not going to be, you know, on social media, or I'm just going to just completely unplug. We all need that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 14 centuries ago, before social media, he needed to unplug from Meccan society. Can you imagine? I
Wow.
mean, the Prophet, with, you know, a person of his spiritual caliber, still felt the need for solitude. So solitude has its place in our tradition, and we need it, because it's the best environment for reflection. Chances are you're not going to be able to reflect and be introspective when you're distracted by social media, when you're around, you know, family and friends. We all need that quiet time. So think of that time of solitude, and as self-care, right? You need to kind of just process what happened to you during the day, reflect on what you've achieved, think about what you want to achieve in the coming days. So just making a concerted effort, a conscious effort to designate certain times of the day as no screen time, no internet, no social media.
And what you're saying reminds me of a hadith that I use a lot when I talk about mental health and wellness and balance, from Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, into dividing your time into fourths: to God, to yourself, your family, and your work. Did I get all four?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good
And so
job.
this just shows you how much balance is important in terms of that overall holistic wellness. So you're going to spend time with God for reflection, and then with yourself in solitude, and family and work. It just shows you how dividing that is so important for us to be able to function at our most optimal, right? So it's amazing and it's subhanAllah, now we are in a forced quarantine to do what? What are we going to do with this time? Perhaps, you know, it is an opportunity for reflection. It is an opportunity to reconnect with our families. Yes, a lot of us are going to be facing some hardships, and nobody is immune to that, right? It's indiscriminate. So it's all how we choose to interact with this at this point.
You know, it sounds funny, but a lot of us, because we've been home, some of us don't feel the need to even get dressed up anymore. And that is having a negative impact on our mental health. I mean, think about it. If you wake up in the morning, you're not combing your hair, you're wearing your, you know, your Mickey Mouse pajamas that have 3 holes in them, you know, chances are you're not going to feel like a very productive, you know, successful person. So even though we're home, we still have to, you know, take care of our hygiene,
Yeah.
dress, put on pants, for God's sake, right? Really, like, we might laugh, but it does have an effect. And that applies even to our salah, our prayer.
Yeah.
Like some of us don't dress like we're speaking to God. We,
Ahsantum.
we don't dress up as though we're meeting God. So when you wake up in the morning, brush your teeth, wash your face, wear proper clothes, and you'll feel much more productive. You probably do more productive things if you're dressed the part. If you're in pajamas all day, I can guarantee you, you're probably going to end up, eating ice cream out of a carton and just watching Netflix all day because you're wearing bummy clothes. So you're going to act like a bum. Sister Barak is laughing, but it's true, right?
I'm trying to maintain modesty while laughing here. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm roaring with laughter because I can absolutely relate to that. Having to work from home, I've had days where, I slide out of bed and grab my laptop and get to work, and I'm, in pajamas, and that doesn't really get you going in that mindset. And I've actively and intentionally now forced myself to wear clothes that give me that energy. And this is something we're going to be cut off on Instagram, and then we'll come right back on. So for those, don't worry, it will come right back on. We're going to continue here talking. This is also something we encourage clients when they have an interview, let's say on the phone for a job. We say, actually dress up as though you were going to this person face to face, even if it's a phone interview, because mentally it puts you in that state of mind. You are actually being interviewed. Whereas if you're in your pajamas, you're going to be in that comfy zone.
And fully dress up. Don't just wear like the suit
and then pajamas. No, you do the full thing, the full garb to get into it. Yeah.
And that applies also to working out. If you're wearing pajamas, you're probably not going to, be in the mood to work out. Did we get cut off?
Just on Instagram. We're good here. Yeah.
So, so, I mean, if you want to work out, wear workout clothes. If you want to pray, wear clothing that is appropriate for salah. If you want to spend time with your spouse, dress up a little bit. So I think that, what we wear has an impact on our mental well-being.
It really does. And I think it brings a confidence to people as well, right? It makes you feel more confident. So that's why you see a lot of girls perhaps wear makeup. They say that they feel more confident the way that they look. Yeah. I will be the first one to say, as a sister and a female, and I don't care if people don't like this, with all due respect, some of our hijabi sisters have gone the opposite way with the way that they dress with makeup and hijabs. It's got to be a modest reflection of how you present yourself out there. Sure, slap it on when you're at home, when you're around just ladies or girl parties, but we got to be careful also with our hijab when we're out in public, because we're defeating the purpose of how we look like. There's confidence, but then there's crossing the boundaries of modesty when it comes to how good you can look with your hijab. So it's something, even just with girls, let's say, who are not Muslim or don't wear the hijab, I find it interesting when we talk about self-esteem and how we dress and how that makes you feel, right? So that's another topic. We can talk about sparkles all day long, but I think makeup is another chat when it comes to that. But that just reminded me of that when you said that, because a lot of people will say, oh, I feel so much more confident when I have this on my face or when I dress this certain way. Yeah. But who's to say you can't put on the makeup now that you're at home? Go for it. It can make you feel better. Go for it. Whether it's working out in gym clothes or putting on the blazer when you're doing interviews or working, it really it sets the mode and the energy for what you're doing right now, right? Definitely. I'm just going to go through the list here, see if there's any other questions here, because we've jumped all over the place, different questions and the flow of it, which has been great, alhamdulillah. But I think we've answered most of these questions when it comes to it.
Oh, one thing that I would add,
yes,
especially for those who are struggling with anxiety, with depression, a while back I was reading this article, and it was talking about the impact that the human touch has.
Yes.
And a lot of us, we live with our spouses, siblings, children, and if you're feeling depressed or down, having physical contact with a loved one, it's been scientifically proven that it does reduce and it helps with depression and anxiety. So it's healthy for spouses to hug each other, to hold hands. You know, you're watching a movie, you're watching whatever, hold hands, hug your children, embrace each other.
Give a
Because Allah
massage.
subhanahu,
Yeah.
what's that?
Give a massage.
Give a
Your
massage.
partner for your children. Yeah.
By the way, I'll state parenthetically that one of the benefits of having children is that you get free massages. You know, I just asked my daughter, Bobby, can you give me a massage? And she's so excited to do it. And I know it's not going to last forever, and I'm going to milk it every day.
Absolutely.
But
Does she walk on your back? Do you get those
she does,
massages?
she does. Yeah, she does. She does that
That's
sometimes.
the Iraqi style massage. I think we all did that for our dads. Now we're getting our kids to do it. Just a little bit further with what you were saying, Sheikhna, the idea of what you're saying is so profound. I use that a lot with our clients as well. The idea of touch. And it's something fascinating now these days because we no longer can touch and greet each other publicly in outside, where there's fear of touch now almost around us. But the idea of touch is so incredible because when you are holding somebody for at least 20 seconds, you have the release of oxytocin, which is dubbed as the love hormone, right? And this is something that's incredibly powerful, which is why you feel so good after you hold a loved one or your child or whomever, subhanallah.
And they say it's just as effective, if not more effective, than taking an antidepressant. You know, so family support is important. And again, we have an Islamic precedent for this. You know, when the Prophet was stoned in Ta'if, and he felt that anguish. Where did he go? He went to Khadija. When the Prophet felt that weakness in his body, who does he go to? You know, in Hadith al-Kisa, you know, he goes to Fatima al-Zahra. So even the Prophet teaches us that when you experience trauma, that you go to that family support. You know, you connect with family members, and they're there to help you and to lift you up. So physical touch
Beautiful,
is very important.
And for those perhaps family and friends who are living with somebody or know somebody who is dealing with depression or anxiety, is to reach out to them, right? And not just, hey, what's up, how's it going? But to go in depth and try to have a conversation with them, try to engage them. If they're okay to be touched, that's another thing too, asking permission, right?
Exactly.
To do that. And you can ask, can I give you a hug? Can I greet you this way? And so it's important also for those who are dealing or know somebody who is dealing with that to reach out to them that way. And these days especially, yes, we are saying limit yourself and balance yourself virtually and online, but at the same time, I think there's probably been an increase now in video calls. I can attest to that with my cousin. We've been almost calling each other daily now, and we haven't done that in such a long time because we're so busy. And I think we can do that more easily now in our digital world. But also reach out to the people you know in your community, pick up the phone and call them and help them connect with that, with each other, ask them if there's anything you can do for them, and ask to do a video call. We're social beings that thrive off each other for the body language, right? The communication. What's the percentage? 70% is through the body language, the rest is verbal, right? So it's really important to have that, pick up cues, smiling. When you smile, that also triggers and releases happy hormones within your body. I learned this great line from Sheikh Jafar recently, where he says, faith it till you make it. You know, fake it till you make it. I love that. And that's also something we apply with people who, let's say, people of faith who are dealing with depression and anxiety. Even if you don't feel like praying, you know what? Just hit it. Just do it. Even if you're not feeling it spiritually, emotionally, just doing the act of it can help you get into it eventually, right?
Sure.
I've had clients come in who say, they see I'm Muslim. We don't get into the Muslim part right away. We talk about whatever issues that they've come in for. And then alhamdulillah, we get to that part naturally. It leads to that and say, you know what, I've stopped praying, or you know what, I've been drinking, or you know what, I've been doing this or that. And so I don't play the haram police on them and get all judgmental. And that's a huge thing we have in our communities when we get all judgmental. But to go back and say, perhaps, what do you want to do about that? Put it back on the other person and say, what do you want to do about that? How do you want to change that? How do you want to this? SubhanAllah, I find at the end of the session, the clients say, I'm going to maybe start reading Quran again, or I'm going to try to get into my salah again. And we have that open compassion, when we have that sincerity and just listening to people who are struggling, especially within our communities who tend to be more judgmental, that non-judgmental factor goes a huge way into helping people, reaching out for support, getting the help that they need, just being listened to, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
True.
So I have a question here it's related to depression. It says, if listening to music makes someone happy and helps them deal with depression, is it okay?
You know,
A big sigh precedes the answer here.
we have to make a distinction between temporary relief and actual healing.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm having a bad day, technically, if someone gets drunk, that can give them temporary relief, but that doesn't mean it's the best course of action. Islam wants to give us, effective ways to deal with stress, to deal with anxiety, and we know that. So listening to music might have, and again, we don't know if this is the case. Research might show otherwise, but even if we assume that listening to music does help people reduce their stress levels, we know, as Muslims, we know that we're not just, we are bodies and we're souls. In fact, we're souls before we're bodies.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you have a soul, you are a soul. What you have is a body. So we shouldn't do anything that's gonna be counterproductive to our spiritual growth. So whatever coping mechanism that we want to take on needs to also take into consideration the fact that we are souls. So with that said, there are so many other things that you can do to help deal with stress and anxiety. In fact, something, and I don't want to sound too much of like a Maulana today, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he felt that anguish and that sorrow, the Prophet was ridiculed in Mecca. He was called every name in the book, and that's a lot of pressure. So he's dealing with the resistance, the opposition of Meccan society. He has all of these downtrodden followers. That's a lot of pressure on one person. And so the Prophet felt this immense weight on his chest. He felt like, there was this heavy burden. And Allah says to the Prophet in Surah Al-Hijr, ayah number 97, وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ يَضِيقُ صَدْرُكَ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. Ya Rasulullah, we know that your heart is constricted. We know that you're distressed. Mm-hmm. So here we understand that even the Prophet feels distressed. So what is Allah's recommendation? What does Allah tell him to do? So, forget about a therapist. Allah is giving, therapeutic advice. What does Allah say to the Prophet? وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ يَضِيقُ صَدْرُكَ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَكُن مِّنَ السَّاجِدِينَ. Glorify God. Sometimes when we face difficulties, we have to remember that Allah is still in charge. Allah is in control. But in addition to that, Allah commands the Prophet to specifically prostrate. Why? Why not ruku'? Why prostration? Because if you look at the physical act of sujood is really the ultimate form of, it's the ultimate therapy. Because when you go down into sujood, there are a couple of things that are happening. Number one, you're placing your frontal lobe, the frontal cortex, on the earth. And if you look at the position of sujood, that's the only position where your head is essentially lower than the heart. So what are you doing? You're directing blood flow. Yeah. You're directing blood flow to the frontal lobe, and the frontal lobe, the frontal cortex, is the command center of the brain. Right. So it's almost as though you're massaging that part of the brain. Secondly, we as Shia Muslims, we do sujood on the earth, and you're getting rid of those free radicals. So when you have the idea of grounding.
Yes, of course.
So that has a very positive impact on your physical well-being. So just the physical act of sujood. So if you feel overwhelmed, just try this. Go down into sujood and, take a deep breath and just do tasbih. Say subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. Say it 100 times. and take a deep breath. And I promise you, if you do that, if you make that your coping mechanism, you'll see amazing results. You'll see amazing results. So again, everybody has their own. I'm not saying that this is the one all be all, but there are so many other halal, healthy, effective ways to deal with stress and anxiety. You know, one of the things that I do when I feel overwhelmed is that I do wudu with cold water.
Uh-huh.
It's just so refreshing. I go outside, for example, and I walk barefoot on the grass. Just connecting your body to the earth is profoundly therapeutic.
Absolutely. And these ground, you've mentioned a few techniques we do in therapy, which is the grounding, the deep breathing, the muscle tension relaxation as well, distracting your thoughts. So these are beautiful strategies we have from a spiritual perspective, but it's also something we do in the therapeutic process.
There you go, man. I should have been a therapist.
Indeed, indeed. Now I've heard you give talks on mental health, and they're very reflective on what we do with clients as well. And it's beautiful to get the scholars and the sheikhs on board with mental health awareness, because we know in our community it's not something that we talk about. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of taboos, there's a lot of misconceptions, there's a lot of, oh, you're possessed by jinn, you know, these types of ideas, when really it could be somebody dealing with a psychosis, a breakdown, suicidal thoughts, and all of these. And again, it comes with the lot of judgment and a lack of knowledge and fear of that. And mashallah, in the last few years, we've seen this spurt of knowledge sharing within our majalis and our lectures, and just talks and discussions around this within our community. It's been so refreshing to see, especially someone who's been working in this field for so long and just advocating and seeing clients who are just tortured, so to speak, from the backlash within the families in our communities. So alhamdulillah, it's amazing to see that it's become mainstream even within our own communities, and people are more aware now, and they're more accepting. And so when you have that awareness, like you were saying earlier, Sheikh, that people will actually go and get the appropriate help. People are reaching out, asking questions. We're referring to each other. MashaAllah, we have more people now studying psychology, mental health, getting into psychiatry as well. And we have so much more professionals now in the field as well, who come from a Muslim background, and also from the madhab Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, where we can use these strategies as part of the treatment and work holistically together. So alhamdulillah, this awareness is so vital. And another thing, as you were, excuse me, describing, don't worry, I'm not contagious. I've just had this annoying allergic cough for the last month. I should cough appropriately. The practice of the salah, it's prescribed to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we don't look at it that way, right? We look at it as a duty. We have to get up and pray in the morning. It's so early, it's so hard when you've slept so late. You have to get it in before the sunset. When you look at it as a duty, it becomes almost a burden. But if you look at it as a beautiful connection to God, where you're re-energizing yourself, you are mindfully awakening yourself and grounding yourself. You've got these opportunities throughout the day to constantly bring yourself back to that mindfulness. It's so powerful. And the prayer, the act of the prayer up and down, and I always talk about this when we go to the communities and talk about mental health, it looks like what? It looks like yoga. And we know, excuse me, and we know how yoga reduces stress with all the studies that are out there, and how hip and cool it is now. Well, I think we can safely say that, subhanAllah, again, we've had this form of meditation and healing for us years ago. But again, you have to come to it with an open heart and mind. Each time I learn about salah, especially from a mental health perspective, I come to salah in a different way now than I did before. And I think this comes with the learning process.
And I love the way that the adjectives that you use to describe prayer. You're right. When you think of prayer as a chore or a burden, you're not motivated to do it. But when you think of salah as the ultimate form of self-care, you have a different attitude towards it. So think of salah as you know, an obligatory, you know, period of self-care that Allah has made incumbent on us. So
that's again a beautiful way of reframing it, right?
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned though something very important here, but not everyone can enjoy praying, especially when depressed. And this is something that I think we both experience when people come, and we hear this in our community. Oh, you don't have enough faith. Your faith is not strong enough. Go read some Quran, go read some dua, you know, believe more in God. And you hear these phrases thrown at somebody who's dealing with depression. What is this person going to do? Are they more likely going to go read the Quran, or are they going to go turn away from it in that moment? They're not going to find that healing. They're not going to find that calmness, that grounding in that moment. It's like somebody who breaks an arm or a leg, or has an insulin issue with glucose rising and declining. In that moment, is that prayer going to actually lower the glucose level, or is the insulin shot or that broken leg, does it not need to be casted and starting the healing process? Or is God instantly going to, you know, astaghfirullah, but is God instantly going to heal? Of course, he has the power to do that. But in that moment, is that going to happen? No. And so there needs to be the step-by-step in terms of, let's take care of the pain. Let's put your leg in a cast. Let's begin that part. Let's look at how you're going to pray with a broken leg, you know?
And even those who complain that, you know, I'm not in the mood for prayer. I don't feel connected to God during my prayer. You know, we shouldn't feel guilty when these things happen, because they do happen to us. You know, our spirituality fluctuates. So even if you get up and pray and you feel like it's a burden and you're depressed and you don't feel connected, just do it. It's an achievement if you just do it. You're
Fake
not
it till you make it.
exactly. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. So people shouldn't give up on prayer if they don't feel like the prayer is not helping them immediately. In the same way that you're not going to stop taking medicine if that pill doesn't cure you immediately. You know, prayer is necessary whether you're healthy or you're sick. You know, it has nothing to do with your condition. You need it at all times. So we should never discard the prayer if we feel that it's not helping us at that particular moment.
And it could be part of that routine that helps us get into it. And we've seen that consistently. And I've heard this from clients who've dealt with depression, that when they consistently eat well, sleep well, exercise, engage in healthy hobbies and distractions, volunteer, engage with, excuse me, things that bring them, and I'm not dabbing. People are saying I'm dabbing. Are you serious? I'm coughing here. Sorry. But when you engage in that kind of routine, it creates that stability, and that prayer and other rituals that bring you that comfort can happen. Somebody mentioned, can depression be a sign of weak faith? And I'm sure you've had this question before. What are your thoughts on that? And we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon. We've gone over.
No, I mean, in the same way that a broken ankle is not a sign of weak faith. I mean, it's, you know, it's an ailment, right? There's something wrong, and that's not. I mean, if I give a Quranic example, you know, if I were to ask you, is it possible for a mu'min not to want to be alive anymore? Is it possible?
To actually not be alive?
To not want to be alive anymore.
Not want to be alive. Like want to die. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Not committing suicide. Let's say they're not going to commit suicide. But is it possible for someone of faith to have thoughts every once in a while and say that, you know what, this is really miserable and I don't want to be alive anymore?
I think that's what makes us human, is to be aware of the challenges that we have.
What if you go to Surah Maryam? Okay. What does Maryam say? You know, when she's giving birth to Isa alayhi salam, and she's thinking about all of the horrible things that Bani Israel are going to say about her. They're going to question her.
She doesn't want to face that.
She doesn't, and she says explicitly, "Ya laytani mittu qabla hadha wa kuntu nasiyan mansiya." So, you know, reacting to life circumstances like that, and having moments where you feel like, man, life is really difficult. I don't want to be alive anymore. That is not a sign of weak faith, because Maryam had that thought. Now, of course, her faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, her trust in Allah allowed her to continue living. She was able to overcome that. But the point is, it's possible to have those thoughts every once in a while when things become too much and you're still a mu'min. It doesn't mean that you've lost faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Oh, that's a beautiful way of putting it, because a lot of people will say, you know, I've had thoughts of wanting to end, my life to end. I don't want to live. I hear that often. I don't want to live. And that is somebody who's experiencing a lot of heaviness or depression perhaps in their lives.
But there's a big difference between someone who says, I don't want to live, and I want to kill myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
But it does, but it's human to feel overwhelmed and to ask and to think to yourself that, wow, man, I wish I wasn't alive today. I think all of us have felt that.
We've
We've
all had
all
these
had
thoughts.
days where we're like, man, I really wish I was in Barzakh right now. Right? Really, like, it happens to us. So we shouldn't feel bad or feel like we've relinquished our faith if we have bad days.
I'm going to wrap it up with this question here. Certain anxieties are fear-based. For example, social anxiety is fear of social situations. Can social anxiety be a rahmah for fearing other than Allah? What are your thoughts with this one?
It depends. I mean, I think there are certain people that enjoy being. I mean, they're introverts. They enjoy being away from people. They enjoy, their solitude. As long as it doesn't prevent you from fulfilling your obligations, and one of your obligations is to maintain ties with your family and your relatives. So as long as those obligations are being fulfilled, then it's not a problem. So yeah, as long as you're not falling into haram and you're completely isolating yourself, then to each their own. Some people are more social than others, and that's fine. We're all different.
A lot of people have been asking non-related questions. And so what I would say to that, if you would like, send the questions both to the Sheikh and to myself. Where can they reach you, Sheikhna?
A lot of people ask me that question, but Twitter, tag me, and I apologize from the get-go if I don't get to your questions. I'm just, again, my boss, who's my 2-year-old daughter, she doesn't really let me, she doesn't give me a lot of free time.
Especially when you have the tea parties with her. You've mentioned
parties, the hand painting, which gives me a lot of anxiety. I hate when it's all over the place. Yeah, man. Like,
how about when she plays doctor?
When she plays doctor, she's good, but I think she'd be sued for medical malpractice. She
do you have any lawyers? Do you have any lawyers out there?
Tries to choke me with she's but honestly, it's one, having children is a blessing, honestly. As much as sometimes I complain about it, but it really brings out the best in you.
SubhanAllah, they truly do. They make you look at the world in a different way. They make you look at it from a light way, because we're so busy being grown-ups, adults, dealing with heavy things that happen in our lives. We forget to look at butterflies or to look at down on the ground.
I was looking at ants today for a good 5-10 minutes. Like, when would I ever sit and look at ants?
Exactly.
But they pull you back. I always say that my daughter pulls me back to Allah's ayat, right? We think ayat are only the ayat that are in the Mus'haf, but some of the most beautiful ayat are out there, outside. So they force us to reconnect with God's creation, and it's a blessing. I mean, if it wasn't for children, I think adults would be unbearable.
Well, imagine if adults behaved like our 2-year-olds or our 9-year-olds. That'd be pretty refreshing, wouldn't it? Really living.
I wouldn't want them operating heavy machinery, but yeah.
No, I agree with that. There's so much more questions. They're all coming in now. So what I recommend people do, because I know the Sheikh has a little one, he's got to get ready for bedtime.
I got to head out.
You're getting messages. Okay. So anybody who has questions, please feel free to message the Sheikh. And you can also reach me through my social medias as well if you have any questions. And
you can't reach me, just send your questions to Burak. She'll take care of you.
Inshallah, only if it's mental health related. Otherwise, I'm going to shoot them off to you, Sheikhna. So thank you so much for joining us. And I think people were shooting off so many questions, didn't get to them. So please forgive us if we didn't get to them. And you know how to get a hold of us. Thank you again for your insights, your reflections. It was a lovely conversation. Inshallah, we can do this again because we had people from all over the world, mashallah, joining us. Yeah, so I just quickly want to give a shout out to Bronze Digital, who made the beautiful posters for our events these days. This is again people coming with their services and offering to help also. This is a beautiful act. Bless you. And we are doing another one tomorrow, not with the Sheikh, inshallah, another time, but on the topic of children, lockdown with the children. So join us then. Thank you very much for everybody, and the brother who's helping us stream this all over the place. Bless you. Thank you so much. Please send her salams to the little princess and her mother, and inshallah we'll connect soon again, Sheikhna.
Thank you guys so much. Please keep me in your dua. And if anyone learns how to wrap a turban, let me know. We'll be best friends for life.
Inshallah. And just quickly, I want to put it out there, although we were lighthearted today and trying to be positive because this is a difficult time for everybody. Inshallah, all the prayers are out there for the people who are dealing with lost family members, people who are sick right now. For Sheikhna, do you mind just wrapping up with a quick dua for everybody, please?
Yes, yes. So I actually have Sahif al-Sajjadiyya with me, and I'll, since it's Friday where I am, I'll just read the dua that Imam al-Sajjad used to recite on Fridays, if you guys don't mind, very quickly. Excuse my voice is a bit strained, so don't judge me on my voice. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الحمد لله الأول قبل الإنشاء والإحياء والآخر بعد فناء الأشياء العليم الذي لا ينسى من ذكر ولا ينقص من شكر ولا يخيب من دعا ولا يقطع ولا يقطع رجاء من رجاه اللهم إني أشهدك وكفى بك شهيدا وأشهد جميع ملائكتك وسكان سماواتك وحملة عرشك ومن بعثت من أنبيائك ورسلك وأنشأت من أصناف خلقك أني أشهد أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك ولا عديل ولا خلف لقولك ولا تبديل وأن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله عبدك ورسولك أدى ما حملته إلى العباد وجاهد في الله حق الجهاد وأنه بشر بما هو حق من الثواب وأنذر بما هو صدق من العقاب اللهم ثبتنا على دينك ما أحييتني ولا تزغ قلبي بعد إذ هديتني وهب لي من لدنك رحمة إنك على كل شيء قدير وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. مأجور شيخنا, مأجور إن شاء الله.
Thank you everyone, and we hope to see you guys in the near future.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Sheikhna.
جزاكم الله في أمان الله.
Take care. Assalamu alaikum.